Welcome to day 7 of 7 days of Wagtail. This is our final day. So in front of me, I have my two terminals here. At the bottom, I'm going to run python manage.py run server on port 8000. We've seen this at least 7 times already. And above, I'm just going to be able to write my standard command. So if I need to make migrations or anything like that. And in this lesson, we're going to be adding site settings. So globally accessible site settings. Now, this is very interesting. The first thing we need to do is create a new app. So let's go ahead and do python manage.py start app, and let's call this site_settings. And now this looks like it doesn't do anything, but if we open up our editor, and I'll just close this stuff down, this is all from yesterday, we have a folder called site settings, and we need to activate that. So let's go into our settings, base.py, and let's enable it, site settings. Now this is an empty app. There's absolutely nothing in it, and it's not going to do anything if we enable it. So at this point, it's kind of useless. We also need to do a couple more things in our settings though. We need to add wagtail.contrib.settings. And then in our context processor, so we've got templates, context processors, we are going to want to add wagtail.contrib.settings.context processors. I hope I'm not typoing this too poorly. Settings, I believe is what it's called. And let's see if Django is complaining. Django hasn't complained yet. That's good news. And so if we just close that down and go into our site settings and then our models, we can add a bunch of new stuff in here. So let's start from sort of scratch, actually. Let's keep what we have here. We're going to use models anyways. And let's do a bunch of imports. So we need to do from wagtail.admin.edit handlers import a field panel. And that's just because we're going to be using a new model. And so I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I know that we're going to be using a new model for our settings and we need to expose it in the Wagtail admin. We do that with a field panel. Then we need to do from wagtail.contrib.settings.models import our base setting. And instead of like creating a page with page, we're going to create a setting with base setting. And then we're also going to want to register that setting. And this is going to be a decorator. And I think at this point in time, that's all we're going to need. So let's go ahead and create a new class called social media settings. And this is going to be a base setting. And in here, we can say Instagram is equal to models.url field. Let's give this like a max length of, I don't know, 100 if we wanted to. And then we need some panels. And because this isn't a page, it doesn't have page.content panels. It doesn't have that. This is a lot like a snippet. So we just have regular panels and it takes a list of panels. And so we're just going to use a regular field panel for this. Instagram. And now this is nice and all, but this isn't actually going to register the setting. But as an example, let's go ahead and take a look at what this is going to do. In our terminal, let's go ahead and make migrations. Let's go ahead and also migrate. And if we go into our admin here, I don't see settings in here. So it created social media settings for me, but it's not accessible in the admin yet. We have to register this as a setting, and that's where we import register setting. And this is simply a decorator. So we just do @register setting and then pass the whole class in there. Let's go ahead and refresh this and let's go back into our settings. We see social media settings. And now in our Instagram, we can add a link. So https instagram.com/coding.for.everybody. And that's just the tips and tricks and coding stuff that I do on Instagram. So we save that. And when we go back to our page here, there's nothing. But let's say we want to add it to our custom footer. What we can do is we can now open this up. And instead of going to generic templates, generic, and then generic page, what we can do is we can add this to every single page by going into 7 days, templates, base.html. And where we have this footer, and this is just from yesterday, where we have this footer, we can add settings.site settings, and that's our app name, and then the class name, social media settings and .instagram. Let's go ahead and see if this shows up. Yep, it shows up there. Now that's hard to see. Let's go ahead and change some of the styling. Static, CSS. And let's make this footer have some nice padding at least. Padding, top 50 pixels. Padding, bottom 50 pixels. There we go. That's a little bit better. And so this is exactly what we wrote in our site settings here. And so if I did coding for everybody, 2222222, refresh, 2222222 shows up. Let's go ahead and get rid of that because that is unprofessional, Caleb. Just kidding. This is just a local website, so it doesn't really matter what you put in there as long as it's a valid URL. Now, is this optional? We said this is not optional. However, if you wanted it to be optional, you could say blank is equal to true. Make your migrations, run your migrations, and then in here we can say if site settings.socialmediasettings.instagram, if that's been filled out, we can put that in there. And then we can do end if. And that just says if there's nothing in here, it doesn't show up for us. If we put this back and save it, it's going to show up for us. Now that's nice, but we don't just want to display that. Let's create a link in here. href is equal to someplace we don't know yet. And let's say, follow us on Instagram. And then we just put that link in here. So we use curly braces plus a % to execute some logic, like an if statement and an end if statement. And then we use the double mustache syntax here if we're just accessing data. So we're using logic here, and we're accessing data here. And so we're saying if this social media setting .instagram exists, show it in here, and then access that as the actual link. So let's go ahead and save that. And now it says follow us on Instagram. I can click it. And that's not going to send me anywhere because that's Instagram. That is a typo. If you're looking at your screen going, Caleb, you typed Instagram. Good catch. Let's refresh. Follow us on Instagram. And here we go. Without the typo, it works better. And that's how we add social media settings. So as a recap, we have social media settings, or you can have any settings really, and then you use a base setting. I only have one field in here, Instagram, but you could put Facebook, Twitter, anything else in there. And it doesn't actually have to be just models. You could put stream fields in here as well if you wanted to. Then we registered it as a setting. And then in our template, we said, if settings.site settings, that's the app name, .the class name, .the property exists, use that link. Now, one thing to keep in mind is this is not going to work unless you have Wagtail contrib settings installed in your installed apps. You absolutely need that. And this isn't going to work unless you have Wagtail contrib settings.contextprocessors.settings in your context processors. That just allows your settings to be available on every single page. So from here on out, I have two things I would like you to do. First things first, if we go to our homepage, okay, our homepage is purposely empty. I want you to add some stuff to your homepage, add some new fields, add a new stream field, add a bunch of stuff in here. Make it nice. And the second thing is to actually make it nice. Add Bootstrap, add Foundation, add Tailwind, whatever you want to make your website actually look nice. Because right now, we're just using plain text. It's boring. I know that. But this is incredibly functional. And at this point, you can actually have some fun with this, and you don't have to worry too much about adding fields. You can just make your website look really nice, and it will be editable through Wagtail. Last but not least, if you are looking for a full-size course on Wagtail, you can always go to learnwagtail.com, click up here, Wagtail for Beginners, and this course is only $20, and it's going to go into immense detail into Wagtail, things that I couldn't possibly cover in just 7 days of Wagtail. We're going to talk about installation, creating 7 different apps, contact pages, stream fields, different types of stream fields, using different templates, custom stream field validation, all sorts of advanced things, custom pages, creating listing pages and automatically populating content as soon as you create a new page, i.e. creating a blog page that automatically populates, caching, how to use a custom menu, creating Django models. We touch on that a little bit in this week. Creating custom site settings. We definitely did that. We did that today. Adding image cropping and renditions. We worked with that a little bit. Adding a sitemap. We didn't add some debugging tools. We didn't touch any of that. Personal methods for learning Wagtail quickly and effectively and efficiently, which is what I use. Just a few tips and tricks on how to learn Wagtail quickly so you don't have to keep taking courses over and over again. And then you're going to launch your website to the actual web so that people can view your website. Because right now people can't view localhost port 8000. So if you're interested in a course like that, it's pretty detailed. There's a lot to go through. All the source code is completely available. You can go to learnwagtail.com, click on Wagtail for Beginners, and you can sign up there. Thank you for taking 7 days of Wagtail. I hope this was helpful. If you are looking for additional support, you can always go to wagtail.io/Slack, and this will take you to, well, a login page, but you can register for free and access the Wagtail Slack where there's thousands of Wagtail developers, and you can ask questions in our support channel. Thank you for taking the 7 days of Wagtail. I've been your host, Caleb Tallien. I'm a Wagtail core developer. I hope you've learned something useful here, and I hope the whole 7 days thing was spread out nicely so it wasn't too overwhelming. If you feel like joining our community, come join our community. If you feel like getting more involved in Wagtail code, there's always that Learn Wagtail/Wagtail for Beginners course that I have. You can always read the docs as well. There's a lot of good snippets of code inside of the documentation at docs.wagtail.io. Thank you for choosing Wagtail as your content management system. It is Python's #1 most popular content management system. It is growing rapidly. People are loving it, and I am hoping that this was a nice little piece of education for you just to get your feet wet with Wagtail CMS. Thanks again, and I'll see you around. Bye.